State machine system allow us in order to do some certain things at some certain in some certain state. Let's assume that if this enemy just playing the idle animation clip, then in this state I want this enemy to just stand at one point and do nothing, and once the time is up for my idle time, then I want this enemy to move over to move state, basically to play the move basically walk animation clip. And once we're gonna play the walk animation clip or walk state, then I want this enemy to just patrol around this ground. So in some certain state we just want to do some certain things. So basically that is the thing we're gonna use state machine, and it's just gonna allow us in order to do that. To do that, make sure you select your enemy in the hierarchy, go over to animator tab. You can see that I have already created this animation clip and the transition between them. And if you don't know how to create and make the transition between them, I will have a video in the description and you can go and check it out. So we're going to choose the idle state or the idle animation clip, then click on this add behavior, then click on new script, name the script what you want to name it. Make sure you name it to something like idle state or idle, just like that. Then click on this create and add, and you can see that I have already created. So I'm gonna open that up there by double clicking on it inside Visual Studio, and we can remove this bottom two function we don't need, and make sure you just remove all of these slashes, and make sure you just leave the comment one. On state enter function get call, when we gonna enter to that state, if we play the idle animation clip, so once we're gonna play the idle animation clip, then this on state enter function just gonna get called. You can simply think of this is a start function. State update function, it just gonna work like as a update function, and it just gonna runs every single frame. And this on state exit function get called when we gonna exit the state. Let's suppose we just want to make the transition from idle to our move or walk animation clip. So once we're gonna make this transition, then this function just gonna get called, because we're gonna exit the state or we're gonna exit the animation clip. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna make some variables in the top of our class for our idle time, because for a little moment I just want to play the idle animation clip or the idle state, and after that I simply want this enemy to move over to move state or the walk state, or simply want to play the walk animation clip. So let's declare some variables. So let's come at the top of our class and let's make some variables for it. So I'm going to choose the maximum and the minimum idle time. So we're going to make a public float, and I'm going to call this minimum idle time, min idle time, and by default I'm going to choose something like 2 unit, and also we're going to create one for our max. So I'm going to call this max idle time, and by default I'm going to choose something like 3 unit 3f. And also we're going to create another variable, and this will be the idle time. So we're going to choose, and it doesn't need to be public, so I'm going to make it private instead, float, and I'm going to call it something like idle time. So this will be idle time. And also we're going to create another variable to just keep track of the time when we enter to a specific state. If we play the idle animation clip, so I just want to keep track of the time when we enter it to idle animation clip. So we're gonna make a variable for it as well. So we're gonna make private float, and we can call it start time, something just like that, start time, just like that, and close that up with semicolon. And let's go over to our on state enter function, which is just gonna work like as a start function. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna set my start time equal to time.time, because I just want to keep track of the current time. So the time.time over here basically means the current time, and also we need to make sure the idle time we set. So we're gonna use the random.range function for this, and this over here it's gonna take two variables, the minimum and the maximum inclusive. So I'm gonna pass the minimum and the maximum idle time, max idle time, and this random.range function just gonna pick up a number between this minimum and the max idle time. So I'm gonna set my idle time idle time equal to this, which can be 3 4 which can be 3 2.1 2.2 and so on. And now we're gonna go over to on state update function, and over here we just want to check if the idle time is up or not. If it's up, it means we need to play, or we basically have to move over to our move state or move animation clip. It's time to do that. So let's use the if condition, and we will check if our time means the current time, if it's greater than or equal to our start time, which is the time when we enter to our state, and top of that I'm gonna add my idle time. If that is the case, means the time is up for our idle. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna set the idle parameter to false. So if I go back to Unity editor, and if I choose my transition, we can see that we have chosen if idle is false and this work is true. So we need to set, and this parameter is a bool parameter, and we can see that we have animator component reference inside this as a argument parameter. We can see basically this animator component which is sitting on this enemy one, we can notice. So we can simply go over to our animator component, and we're going to use the set bool function because those are bool parameters. And first thing, we need to pass the parameter name. So in our case that is idle, and the second thing, we have to set the value. So I'm gonna set it to false because I want to move over to move animation clip or walk animation clip. And the second parameter we need to set, which is the walk, and we need to set it to true because we just want to make the transition to our walk animation clip. So we will go to animator, and we're gonna use the set bool function, and we will set our walk parameter to true. You can see the minimum and the maximum idle time. Let's go ahead and play our game and wait. And indeed, after a few seconds, we just move it over to this walk animation clip. So in this walk state, what we simply want to do, we want this enemy to just move around this move or patrol around this ground. And if I choose my enemy one, we can see a enemy one script I have attached to this enemy one. So what we're gonna do now, I'm just gonna simply call this patrol function. I have it inside my this enemy one script, as you can see. So what I'm gonna do now, we're gonna choose our enemy walk under enemy one underscore walk animation clip, click on add behavior, then new script, and you can name it to something like walk state or walk something just like that, and then click on this create and add. And as well, we're gonna remove these two bottom function we don't need, and we will remove these slashes. And here I'm gonna call the patrol function, and I'm gonna do it inside this on state update function because it's called over again and again. So first thing, we need to go over to enemy one script, and we can do that by this animator component because the animator component is sitting on this enemy one. So if I select my enemy one, you can see the animator component on our enemy one game object. So by this animator component, we can just access the enemy one script, and inside this enemy one script, we can call the patrol function. But before we call, we have to mark this function as public, else we're not gonna able to call it. So let's mark it public void patrol, and let's go over to a state machine class. And over here, what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna simply call the function. So the first thing, we will go to animator component of our enemy, and now we're gonna use this dot game object dot get component, and the component that we're looking for is enemy one script. So let's pass our enemy one and make this first bracket, and inside there we created the patrol function. Let's call the patrol, and we simply calling it as you can see. Let me explain once again. So the first thing, we going over to animator component, as you can see animator, then we accessing the game object, means this enemy one game object itself, and then we're using this dot get component to get this enemy one script, as you can see. And then inside that enemy one, we simply calling the patrol function, and it should do. And indeed, we can notice now it's just gonna patrol around this ground, and indeed it's doing.